I want to ask you about, I will note, part of what they say in that last line is that his demanding daily schedule, including multiple high-level meetings, public engagements, and regular physical activity, continues to support his overall well-being, and talks about his cognitive and physical performance.
Donald Trump's birthday is falling apart, and that is why I have a smile on my face. It is also why Donald Trump does not have a smile, as he steals millions of our tax dollars to fund a tacky party that nobody wants. But that tacky party, like I said, is falling apart. Artists are quitting, and Donald Trump is taking to Truth Social to attack and threaten them over it as he melts down. This is truly beautiful. And honestly, this week, I think a tide has turned in the culture of our country as it relates to Donald Trump. Stephen Miller is being called an ugly loser online. Donald Trump's big party is falling apart. JD Vance is a loser, cancelling events. Something has changed. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now I want to cover it all. But before we get to Donald Trump's insane posting, I want to start with the other part of his birthday that isn't being covered enough. How he stands to profit off of it, before we get to how it's blown up in his face.
This is even as he's taking the nation's birthday party and turning it into his own. I mean, it's a 250th birthday of the country. Trump has sort of appropriated the whole thing as a Donald Trump birthday party. He's throwing himself a UFC party. There it is, in front of the White House, a live televised cage fight that's happening on the White House lawn on Trump's 80th birthday in 2 weeks, by the way. And that pairs wonderfully with another one of Trump's gifts to himself. And again, he's been making lots of these. He's not someone who likes to deny himself much. A big bunch of stock in, yes, you guessed it, UFC's parent company. Between $15,000 and $50,000 worth in late March, according to disclosures first reviewed by HuffPost. The White House told MS Now there are no conflicts of interest. Great. No, there's just a stock purchase and then a giant UFC event on the White House lawn that he's been promoting for months. What could possibly be a conflict of interest about that, right? Donald Trump feels entitled to lots of gifts all the time now, even when it's not his birthday. In fact, every day is kind of his birthday. I think that's the way he views it.
Donald Trump will take every profitable opportunity, I should say, to make the job of the presidency profitable. That is what he is looking to do, and he is doing it once again here. But this is actually a great opportunity for us. If Donald Trump bought stock in the UFC ahead of a party where he is going to be promoting it like hell, then when we boycott it to hell, when we protest it to hell with no kings on Donald Trump's birthday, what is that going to do to the stock price? So we have an opportunity to see some bad people lose money, Donald Trump be humiliated, and for everything to fall apart, which has already been happening. Because artists are quitting left and right. And this right here is what made Donald Trump melt down and attack them in a crazy-ass post. Trump-friendly event disaster deepens as lineup exodus gets worse. Donald Trump's Freedom 250 inches celebration has lost 2/3 of its musical acts after another artist dropped out due to the president's ties to the event. 9 acts, including country star Martina McBride, rapper Young MC, and Poison frontman Bret Michaels, were announced this week as musical guests at the Great American State Fair, a festival taking place on the National Mall between June 25th and July 10th. The event was billed to the performers as a non-partisan celebration of US history. According to multiple artist statements, it is in fact being organized by the MAGA-backed Freedom 250, though. Earlier on Friday, Michaels became the latest act to drop out, bringing the total to 6 cancellations out of the 9 previously confirmed. That's just funny. I've spent my entire career bringing people together through music, positivity and good vibes, Michaels said in a statement on Instagram. My shows have never been about politics. They're about giving people a place to come together. Michaels once appeared on Trump's Celebrity Apprentice in 2010 and is now saying no to the president. Donald Trump's health is getting much worse, just like his presidency, right? This is a display of constant weakness from Donald Trump, and it is why they have to cover up. It is why they have to obfuscate. It is why there was such an intentional effort at the beginning of this administration to root out any non-partisan government officials who provided us with real data on the performance of the economy, on the performance of Donald Trump's administration more broadly. You talk about the non-partisan Congressional Budget Office, right? The CBO talking about how Donald Trump's big ugly bill had huge negative ramifications. They wanted to get rid of them. Donald Trump has tried to get rid of anyone who will share the truth or actually has to report on facts. And it's what they're doing right now, of course, with his health. But Dr. Reiner, he continued to go further in calling that out in this great clip right here. Trump blurts string of stunning boasts as he floats taking over for Freedom 250 concert dropouts. Donald Trump expressed frustration with musicians dropping out of his Freedom 250 inches concert series, floating the idea of simply replacing them all with himself. Many of the artists first announced as part of the Great American State Fair, just one celebration for the United States' 250th birthday, have since dropped out, some citing divisiveness around the event. In a Saturday Truth Social post, Trump accused artists of having the yips. He then went on to call the event the #1 attraction anywhere in the world and boasted that he draws bigger crowds than Elvis Presley did in his prime. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "I understand we are getting the yips as relating to the artists having to do with their performance on Wednesday. So, I'm thinking about bringing the #1 attraction anywhere in the world. The man who gets much larger audiences than Elvis in his prime and loves to do so without a guitar. The man who loves our country more than anyone else. And the man who some say is the greatest president in history, the GOAT, Donald J. Trump." So Trump is saying this about himself to take the place of these highly paid third-rate artists. So he loved them before and now they're third-rate, and give a major speech rallying the country forward like I have done ever since being president. The president promised a wild celebration on Wednesday and appeared to suggest he'd be the only attraction needed there. Trump wrote 2 years ago the United States was quite frankly dead. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I don't want so-called artists that get paid far too much money. Is Trump talking about these people profiting too much off of his birthday? Okay, that's a little bit ironic. I only want to be surrounded by happy people, smart people, successful people, and people who know how to win. So, by copy of this truth, I am ordering my representatives to look at the feasibility of doing an America is Back rally on Wednesday, Washington, D.C. Same time, same location, only great patriots invited. It will be a wild and beautiful celebration of America. President Donald J. Trump. Richard Grenell, Trump's presidential envoy for special missions, previously lashed out at Martina McBride, one of the artists who quit, calling her a left woke for dropping out of the event. So Donald Trump is attacking the very artists who he begged and pleaded to attend this event. They're now third-rate, they're now overpaid, and they now pale in comparison to Donald Trump getting up on stage, because people would rather hear Trump slur through his words, drag around his cankles, and talk about Sleepy Joe and Barack Hussein apparently than see some musical performances. This is a crash out like we have seen few times before from Donald Trump. And again, I think it is because this is his week of weakness, athletes speaking out against Donald Trump. He said he wanted to go to the Knicks game as we talked about on the show, and that tweet from Knicks star Josh Hart resurfaced of him basically saying, "Get the hell out of the White House." Trump after Joe Biden won. You saw Abdul Carter, one of the star players for the New York Giants, call out Jackson Dart for speaking alongside Donald Trump, effectively endorsing every part of his evil fascist administration. You saw Stephen Miller getting clowned, artists dropping out, Donald Trump demanding that only the best-looking military officers and troops attend his UFC fight, and only if they love him. Something has shifted in the culture. Donald Trump's weakness is on display, and it's all as the White House is covering up his health, and Dr. Reiner made sure that wasn't a possibility when he broke this news last night.
One thing I want to ask you about, and I will note, part of what they say in that last line is that his demanding daily schedule, including multiple high-level meetings, public engagements, and regular physical activity, continues to support his overall well-being, and talks about his cognitive and physical performance. But there were 2 points there, and one is that there was an AI evaluation of the president's cardiac health, and it found he is actually 14 years younger. I want you to elaborate on what that means and how you determine that, but also to your point about monitoring something, there's a section about extremities and musculoskeletal. Slight lower leg swelling was noted with improvement from last year. Does that suggest that there had been a monitoring, and does that give you pause? And tell me about this 14-year younger president.
Well, first of all, if you look at Dr. Barbara Bella's note from April of last year, it notes no swelling in the legs. Mm-hmm. So if he has swelling in his legs, then that's not an improvement from last year. That's a deterioration from last year. Perhaps it's improved from over the summer when the photos made the press. But last year at this time, they documented that the president had no swelling in his legs.
So how about this?
Donald Trump's health is getting much worse, just like his presidency, right? This is a display of constant weakness from Donald Trump, and it is why they have to cover up. It is why they have to obfuscate. It is why there was such an intentional effort at the beginning of this administration to root out any non-partisan government officials who provided us with real data on the performance of the economy, on the performance of Donald Trump's administration more broadly. You talk about the non-partisan Congressional Budget Office, right? The CBO talking about how Donald Trump's big ugly bill had huge negative ramifications. They wanted to get rid of them. Donald Trump has tried to get rid of anyone who will share the truth or actually has to report on facts. And it's what they're doing right now, of course, with his health. But Dr. Reiner, he continued to go further in calling that out in this great clip right here.
Then recommended. What's interesting to me also is that the report mentions that the president underwent a coronary artery CT scan, which is a very useful test, except he had that in the fall. And it's not typically a test that is done every 6 months. It's sometimes done more frequently if someone is having symptoms. We don't know if he's having any symptoms because the exam doesn't list what we call a review of symptoms, where you review of systems, where you go through system by system with the patient and ask them questions like, are you having headaches? Are you having any shortness of breath? Do you get chest pain, abdominal pain, et cetera? So there's no real description of a review of systems in this note. But it does mention that, again, they scanned him. So my question is, are they surveilling him for a concern? Are they doing serial CT scans of his heart because they have an ongoing concern? That's not listed in the note.
We need to know more about where Donald Trump's health stands. We are owed that much to know if the President of the United States is falling apart more so than we can already see with our own two eyes. And of course we know that is certainly the case, but we need more info. And we are certainly going to call it out, as we always do on this show, because he's a Big Mac away from it all going kaboom. And dear God, may that day come soon. We're going to continue to cover it all on this show. If you want to support that, y'all, as always we have some fun. You can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you.